Context and background. Before the destruction of the cities, the story unfolds with a visit of three celestial beings to Abraham, who at the time was called Abram. One day, while Abraham was resting near the oaks of Mamre, three men, later revealed as angels, approached him. Abraham welcomes them, offering food and water, and sits down to converse with them. During the conversation, one of the angels reveals to Abraham that his wife, Sarah, will have a son, the promised child through whom God's promises to the people of Israel will be fulfilled. After this promise, the angels inform Abraham that they have been sent to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah due to the extreme wickedness of their inhabitants. Abraham, concerned for his nephew Lot, who lives in Sodom, begins to intercede before God, asking if he would destroy the cities if there were at least 50 righteous people in them. God, in his mercy, answers that he would not destroy the cities if 50 righteous people were found. Abraham continues to negotiate with God, reducing the number until God agrees not to destroy the cities if there are at least 10 righteous people. This establishes an atmosphere of justice and mercy, with Abraham acting as an intercessor. The visit to Sodom. The angels then head towards Sodom, and Abraham watches them leave. Upon arrival, Lot meets them at the gate and, just like his uncle Abraham, welcomes them with hospitality. Lot, knowing the corrupt nature of the city, asks them to stay at his house for the night instead of in the town square. The angels accept, and Lot prepares a meal and protects them. That night, the men of the city, described in the story as wicked men of all ages, gather at Lot's house, demanding that he hand over the angels so they can abuse them. This act reflects the level of depravity in Sodom. Lot tries to protect the angels by offering his 2 virgin daughters instead of the visitors, but the men of the city reject the offer and grow even more violent. Finally, the angels intervene, blinding the attackers so they cannot find the entrance. The warning and the escape. The angels warn Lot and his family that they must flee the city immediately, as God's punishment is imminent. Lot, worried about his sons-in-law, who do not believe the warning, tries to convince them to escape, but they refuse to listen. The angels insist that Lot and his family flee without looking back, for the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah will be devastating. The destruction. As Lot and his family flee, God rains down fire and brimstone upon Sodom and Gomorrah, completely destroying the cities and everything in them. The scene of destruction is dramatic. A rain of fire and brimstone falls from the sky and consumes everything, annihilating all the inhabitants of the cities and destroying the surrounding lands. The divine punishment is total and all-encompassing, and the cities are entirely wiped out. Lot's wife. While fleeing, Lot and his family are warned by the angels not to look back. However, Lot's wife, disobeying this warning, turns to look back as they escape, and as punishment, she turns into a pillar of salt. This moment is symbolic of the lack of faith or attachment to what is left behind. Lot's wife is seen as someone who could not completely detach from the cities and their sins. Theological reflection. The story of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah has multiple interpretations, some more literal and others more symbolic. In the biblical context, the event is presented as an act of divine judgment against the wickedness and corruption of the cities. It has often been associated with a punishment for the city's sin of sexual immorality, violence, and lack of hospitality. In some traditions, the story is interpreted as a warning about human arrogance and the rejection of justice and goodness. The figure of Lot is presented as someone who, despite living in a corrupt place, tries to live according to moral and righteous principles, in contrast to the inhabitants of Sodom. Lot's escape is also interpreted as a metaphor for repentance and salvation, while the destruction of the cities symbolizes the inevitable consequences of unrepentant sin. Cultural symbolism. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah has had a significant impact on Western culture and has been used in different contexts, not only religious, but also literary and artistic. It has been associated with the condemnation of homosexuality, lust, violence, and immorality in general. However, more recent studies suggest that the sin of Sodom cannot be reduced to sexuality alone, but also includes social injustice, exploitation, and violence. Inability to move forward into the future.